I appreciate everyone's patience. I know it's been a long night, and I appreciate you opening the floor for discussion on this. I come to you speaking for the first time on this issue as a resident of Bedford since 1985. My parents, we moved here from West Texas. I was always very proud to live in Bedford as a child over some of my friends lived in Worst and Useless. And it was a lot of pride growing up living here. Went to Shady Brook Elementary for 1 year before my parents started homeschooling us because of the travel that my dad did as an evangelist. When we started homeschooling in 1986, the issue was still very much up in the air as far as the legality of it. I remember very clearly the fear that my mother had about us being seen in public at any time, and the fear she had about the police being called, and we were questioned quite often about why weren't we in school and what were we doing out. I have a 5-year-old child now who we're homeschooling, and I do not want him to have that same fear that my mother had for us. I want him to have the freedom when he is of an age to be out and to have a job, as I did when I was a teenager. I had many jobs starting when I was 13 years old. They were very important in my development, and by that time I did not have to worry about whether or not we would be stopped. But now, if my child wants to get a job and be out, he will need to be concerned about whether or not he can be stopped and questioned. And I have to say that the Bedford Police Department is excellent. I have had a number of interactions with them and with Chief Flory. He's been in our neighborhood, and I have no fear about the Bedford Police right now. I know they have excellent judgment. The other night, I have a video production business. I was working very late, and I have a rental car. A police officer knocked on the door of my business in Bedford just to make sure everything was okay. I was very glad for that because he didn't recognize the car. That made me feel very good. So I have no question about the judgment of the Bedford Police. On another note, I have also been stopped before by a police officer that was having a very bad day. And when you leave something to their discretion and their judgment on something like this, you put someone that is very vulnerable as a teenager or even a child in a position of fear, in a position we raise our children to respect the law, we raise our children to respect the police department, and we tell them that there's no reason that they have to fear. And I want to keep it that way, that they have no reason to fear being stopped, they have no reason to fear being questioned, they have no reason to fear that they are breaking the law by being in public. That is a fundamental freedom that we have. And I don't want my children to start to look at the police in a way that they need to pull into a driveway if they're driving around and they see a police officer coming just because they're driving and they're feeling fear that they are in violation of the law. I appreciate that you did bring in the HEB ISD today. I am concerned that you had them in a work session and then also had further opportunity to hear them in person to be heard. And then before you had an opportunity to have any opposition and to have any opposition to their points, you made your decision on whether or not you were going to take any further action on this issue before anyone else had a chance to respond. And I think it would be more proper to give everyone fair notice and give an opportunity for the other side to be heard before making a decision. I think that's part of the due diligence of making sure all issues have been heard. And I know you've heard from this side for quite a while, but we have not been able to hear their arguments until now. And so it's not, we have some very good arguments to counter those, and I think you need to hear those as well. In fact, I did not hear any good arguments at all from the ISD officials that were brought forward tonight. Many of them, the arguments were arguments for truancy as a whole, but not about how this ordinance is helping them. The only thing that has been stated are the numbers that they say have dropped, and I find those numbers rather dubious considering how short amount of time this ordinance has been in effect and how little people know of it, that kind of an impact of almost 50% has been able to happen. So I would suspect those numbers, but I also, one of the ladies was talking about the children that were sleeping, and the parents would say, if you can get them out of bed, then be my guest, and she would go in and do it. And good for her, but the ordinance would have nothing to do with children that are sleeping in to skip school. This is about being in public. And if the issue is truancy, I believe there are better ways to take care of it. And I would encourage you to open the issue again. 2 weeks with no public hearing is really not enough for an issue that is this strong. And I do believe that that you didn't understand how the issue would be played out in all the different ways. And I completely understand that. I know there are things that come through, and there's a lot of business that comes through, and you were asked to do something that seems perfectly reasonable on its face. I think you've been giving many, many good reasons throughout the last several months, and especially tonight, to take another look and to find something that works better. Thank you very much.